The views expressed are solely those of the speaker and not necessarily those of Paltalk.com, AVM Software, or its advertisers.
News Talk is online. News Talk Online is a production of Paltalk.com, the largest multimedia interactive program on the internet with more than 4 million unique users on demand on iTunes and on YouTube and on my blog, GaryBaumgarten.com, where you are encouraged to post your comments, whether you agree with me or not. By the way, I have a pretty extensive, I believe, analysis of Barack Obama's plans with regard to national security over the next 4 years, and I invite you to go to GaryBaumgarten.com, read what he has in store for the issue of national security, and please post your comments. Interesting thing about the Obama administration, on his whitehouse.gov website, there's now a place where you can give your recommendations to the government. So he said in a post-election interview that he wants to ensure that he is not isolated and only listening to his 10 closest advisors in the White House. And this is one step he has taken to perhaps mitigate that problem, because he likes to be very close in touch. Anyways, 4 million unique users on Paltalk.com and on demand on iTunes, YouTube, and on my site, GaryBaumgarten.com. And thanks to our good friends at CRN Digital Talk Radio, we're syndicated to an additional 12 million households. I am your host, Gary Baumgarten. We welcome you to the show. And we're just delighted with the guest who will be here to talk to you in a second after I introduce him. His name is Chris Hedges. Hedges. He's a journalist and author specializing in American and Middle Eastern politics and society. He's a senior fellow at the Nation Institute here in New York City, a lecturer in the Council of the Humanities, and an Anschutz Distinguished Fellow at Princeton University. He spent nearly 2 decades as a foreign correspondent in Central America, the Middle East, Africa, and the Balkans. He has reported from more than 50 countries, has worked for the Christian Science Monitor, National Public Radio, the Dallas Morning News, the New York Times, where he was a reporter for 15 years. In fact, in 2002, with the old grade lady, Hedges was part of the New York Times team that won the 2002 Pulitzer for the paper's coverage of global terrorism. Same year, he received the Amnesty International Global Award for Human Rights Journalism. Chris Hedges, welcome to News Talk Online on Paltalk.com.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us. Let's start with the breaking news. And, of course, it's to no one's surprise, she's a member of that club. Hillary Clinton was just confirmed by the U.S. Senate as Secretary of State, and that's a very interesting news item to develop today, just moments before we introduce you to the audience, because we've asked you here, Chris Hedges, to talk about the Middle East, and I'm wondering what your feelings are about how well this new administration will be positioned, hopefully better than the last administration, to help potentially broker a peace, and what role Hillary Clinton might play in that, since she knows a lot of the people who we're going to have to be talking to on both sides of the wall separating the Israelis from the Palestinians.
I'm not terribly optimistic about the ability of the Obama administration to influence much between the Israelis and the Palestinians. And that is because over the last 8 years, the Israeli government has made clear that they have no interest in a two-state solution, nor a negotiated settlement. If you look at the tracts of land that the Israeli government has swallowed up in the West Bank, first through the building of this security barrier, and then through the vast expansion of Jewish settlements. By the UN estimates that by the time Israel is done, it will have taken about 40% of the West Bank, including most of the aquifers. There has been a steady assault against Gaza. Remember, all 1.5 million Palestinians are completely hemmed in, literally fenced in by Israel, reducing Palestinians in Gaza to little better than subsistence level, living on less than $2 a day. Half of the residents in Gaza depend for food on UN relief. I think it's very clear, and then this latest assault on Gaza drove home that point, that at best Israel is pursuing a policy of containment, if not ethnic cleansing in some format, and has no interest at this point in building a two-state, a Palestinian state. And I think that, for those of us I spent 7 years in the Middle East, the death of the two-state solution coincided with the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin, who was the last Israeli leader who genuinely sought to build a viable and equitable settlement.
Well, wow, you said a lot there, and it opens up a whole new line of conversation. In my opinion, the official position, in spite of your observations to the contrary, Chris Hedges, of the Israeli government is that they do favor a two-state solution. You question the veracity of that, I take it?
Well, as the Israelis often say, look at the facts on the ground. And everything that Israel has done, especially during the Bush administration, has made it more and more difficult to create a two-state solution by essentially taking ever larger chunks of Palestinian land, including, of course, most of the area around East Jerusalem. East Jerusalem geographically doesn't look anything like East Jerusalem looked when I first went there in 1988. It's completely ringed now by Jewish settlements. So I just don't see on the ground that Israel has been serious about pursuing a possibility or pursuing a policy that would make a two-state solution possible.
Well, the term ethnic cleansing is a very strong term, one that the Israelis bristle at, Chris Hedges, as you well know. But let me just get to your point about, especially during the Bush administration. We all know that when Bill Clinton left office, he wanted his legacy not to be Monica Lewinsky, but a peace in the Middle East, and there was, near the end of his administration, some momentum in that direction. And that was all squandered the moment that George W. Bush became president of the United States.